guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're gonna do another little sit down video, as you can tell, and I haven't seen, I don't think, any videos like this one that I'm gonna make today, so I figured it would be a decent video for me to make because I know a lot of you guys that watch my channel either are getting their first horse or want to in the near future, and I personally know people in my everyday life that have a place and land and a farm to keep their horse on, but prefer to keep it somewhere else or to board it. So today I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of keeping a horse at home, as well as the pros and cons of boarding them. So let's get started. Alright, so cons for keeping your horse at home. I've kept my horses at home for years, and I just recently started boarding them. So keeping your horses at home obviously is a lot more work because it's not a facility or a business where you're keeping them. So everything is self-care. Like, you have to feed your horses yourself. You have to clean the water or refill the water every day if you don't have an automatic one. Clean the barn. Like, if you want your barn to stay nice and clean and not get full of poop, then you need to keep it cleaned out and muck it yourself. Fencing, like all of that you have to do yourself. So it can be a lot more maintenance and work on your part if you keep your horse at home. You also have to schedule everything yourself. So there's no days like where the vet comes regularly or the farrier comes regularly. You have to schedule that stuff yourself, and sometimes that can be difficult at last minute, or it's hard to plan. So you have to schedule everything yourself, and you also have to be there. So sometimes things can be scheduled at the barn if you're boarding a horse, and say somebody else, another boarder, can hold your horse for the farrier or be there while they get their shots or something, so you don't have to be there all the time. Well, it's not that way when you keep your horse at home. You have to be there. You have to meet the vet there, or the farrier there, or the chiropractor, or whatever. So that's more maintenance and more time. But if you're home a lot and you're home every night and can take afternoons off, then it's really not that bad. You also have a limited facility. So unless you've got like acres of ground that you can do whatever you want with, or you own the ground yourself, you've got kind of limited things to what you can do at your own house, such as put in an arena or a round pen or stalls in a barn or things like that. Not everybody can do that. So if you can't do that, just know that that's going to limit you a little bit. My horses were really broke and I wasn't really training them anymore. So like having them at home was fine. We didn't need a round pen or an arena. So if you're going to be like training a horse or practicing for shows or schooling and stuff, just remember, like, if you're not able to put an arena somewhere or a safe place to practice those things, you are more limited at your own home. Now, the biggest thing I think that sets a lot of people back from bringing their horses home and keeping them there is the hay and feed costs. So unless you live in a place that's summer all year round, we have winter and fall where the grass is gone or really short and bad. So you have to buy hay, or if you keep your horse on a dry lot or something like that, then you have to buy all of its food, and that can be really, really hard, especially if you don't have anywhere to store it, and you can only buy little amounts at a time. So hay can be expensive. If your horse requires green, that can cost more. So that's the biggest thing I think a lot of people worry about with bringing their horses home, is having to buy the feed and the hay and storing it. But the pros of keeping your horse at home is you can do whatever you want. That is such a nice privilege to have, is you can put things wherever you want, you can stack things wherever you want, you can put your tack wherever you want, you can move your horse wherever you want, you can ride it wherever. Like, that's really, really nice. And that is one thing that I do miss about having my horses at home, is I could just do whatever the heck I wanted. Like, you didn't have to worry about anything. You didn't have to follow certain rules. That can be really stressful, and especially when you're a forgetful person like I am, you can just do whatever you want at your own home. Another pro is you know what's going on, which is a big thing for me. You always know like what your horses are being fed. You always know where they're at, and you can do whatever you want. So if you move them, or, you know, something changes, you're always in the know about it. So that's really nice to have, is just always knowing like what's going on and what the situation is. Now let's switch over to boarding, because boarding is so much different than having your horse at your own house. So there are a lot of pros for boarding, which is why a lot of people choose to do that instead of having their horse at home. One, the work is all provided. I mean, you pay a fee every month for your horse to stay there, and it includes all the work, all the hay, all the grain. If your horse comes in at night or is in a stall, the stall gets cleaned, the barn gets cleaned, like everything is just provided for you, so you don't have to worry about that stuff. The vet and the farrier comes regularly, so like I was saying, with at home, you have to make your own appointments. A lot of times you don't have to do that when you board, because say the farrier comes every 2 weeks for certain horses. The farrier's going to be there that day, you already know he's going to be there. Like, you don't have to schedule an appointment or a time or whatever. Same with the vet. If you know the vet comes once a month, then you know when they're going to be there. It's not like a hassle trying to find time on your schedule and in theirs, so everything's just regular and consistent. There's usually some sort of facility if you're boarding a horse, like an arena or a round pen or somewhere to ride and practice. So not all the time, but usually there is at the nicer places. A lot of times facilities will have a pasture or a dry lot option. So if your horse has certain dietary needs or needs to be on a diet, then they can be dry lotted, or if not, you can send them out to the pasture, or you could switch, and there's always nice to have both those options. So the cons of keeping your horse somewhere else or boarding them is, like I said with the last one, with keeping your horse at home. When they're at home, you always know what's going on. When they're at a facility or at a different barn, or they're not in your care, you don't always know what's going on. You don't always know who's feeding your horse, how much they're getting, where they're at, if they're been brought in a dry lot or if they're still out in the pasture. It's really difficult, especially if this barn has employees or staff that does the work. It can be really hard to manage all of those people and for each one to know your horse and your horse's needs, so you don't always know what's going on. I remember keeping a horse somewhere once where I would come work with her at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and she'd be in her stall already. And I was like, why is she in her stall already? Like, I just didn't know what was going on. She was only supposed to be brought in at night, so it was really confusing, and I never really felt like I was in the know with what's going on with her. So that stuff can happen. Some places are really good about communicating with their boarders, and that's really something to appreciate. But yeah, you don't always know what's going on. Oh, this one is you have to share your space, which can get really old and really annoying, is having to share a tack room, having to share the barn aisle, and some people like to complain about everything. And yeah, you have to share your space with other people. Some people like to complain about other people's horses, and it's just like, oh my God. So sharing your space, especially if you're in a small barn and having a small space to share with lots of people, can get really difficult and frustrating at times, but it's just part of boarding your horse. So, barn drama, that one gets really old. So if you board at a really big barn, sometimes there can definitely be drama going around about so-and-so's horses, or horses getting sick, or sharing the arena space, and sometimes it's just, it can get annoying. Or this person's not doing this, or it's this person's day to clean the stalls. So just know that barn drama can happen. If you're somebody that just does not like drama and just wants to stay out of it, just expect that with boarding, like, especially because most, not all, but most equestrians are females. And let's be honest, ladies, females all in one space all together, it can get a little heated sometimes. So yeah, that's something to expect. All right, and the last con to boarding your horse is having to make agreements. So, you know, when you sign your boarding contract, when you sign when you sign your life away, basically, you have to make all these different agreements with board prices and the care of your animals, what your horses get fed. If you're doing chores for somebody or chores for board, you have to come to agreements with that type of stuff. So it can be difficult with that as well, especially with big barns that have horses that come in and out all the time. Sometimes you have to agree in your contract that your horse gets like vaccinations twice a year, or your horse has to be wormed every other month and stuff like that. So that's going to cost you more money. And so make sure to read your fine print, because you have to agree to all of that stuff in order to keep your horse there, because you're keeping it at somebody else's property, exposing it to other horses. Therefore, you and other horses are all at risk of, you know, stuff spreading and all that kind of stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Those are just a few things that I had written down. If you have any other pros or cons, or if you've boarded and kept at home, whichever you like better, make sure to put it down in the comments and we can just have a little discussion about it. Because I know there are some people that just prefer to have their horses boarded rather than at home for various reasons, such as facility-wise, work-wise. It all depends. It all depends on your lifestyle. So yeah, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. And if you guys haven't, make sure to check out my Etsy shop, which is always linked down below. Excuse me. If you're interested in buying an equestrian mystery box, I do sell those down there. And I also recently just added pet-themed mystery boxes to my Etsy shop as well, for dogs, cats, and I'm thinking about adding a rabbit one, just because I love rabbits. So let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.